Looking for these better days.
Hello and welcome in to the Bettor Day Football Show alongside professional bettor Steve Fezzik and college football analyst Joshua Nunn. I'm Scott Seidenberg. Thank you guys for tuning in to our debut episode here. We are streaming live on the Bettor Day YouTube page, also on Twitter/X at Bettor_Day. You can also find us on Twitter. Josh is at Step on a Duck. Fezzik Sports is where you'll find Steve Fezzik as well. Fellas, NFL preseason week 1 kicks off tonight. Duck, we are a couple of weeks away from week 0 of the college football season. It's an exciting time. We're going to go through some bets that we've already placed, things that we're looking for tonight's action, and what we're looking for in the futures market as well. Fez, I want to start with you. In August, before the season begins, yes, we have preseason, but how much betting are you doing right now, whether it's adding to your futures portfolio or betting the NFL preseason or placing bets on week 1 of the NFL or college football?
I'm betting everything, Scott. So just as an example, I just got back home from playing a bevy of bets, including, but not limited to, things like I just played the Dodgers under 102.5 season wins in baseball at plus money. And I think I have a bet on every single preseason game tonight, including I must have like 15 bets on this Bengals Detroit game. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, in that I played the Bengals in various ways, including Cincinnati to have the last possession of the game because they're a 7-point favorite, but I have Detroit to score last at minus 110, things like that.
That's interesting. So it's a lot of derivative markets for you when it comes to these preseason games, game props. I know in the Hall of Fame game, you and I both played first half to be higher scoring than the second half, and that's something that we've seen play itself out in recent years. So you like to play those markets when it comes to the preseason.
Yeah, so if you look at the total, for instance, on the Bengal game, it's sitting at 40.5. First half sitting at 23, a little money on the over at 23. Well, you do the math. Well, that means the first half, if it's going to be 23, then the second half should be 17 and a half. So first half minus 150 is a bet that I made. Do I give these out to my clients? No, because they're just not widely available enough.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be, giving out quoting bets that are only available at 1 or 2 books. But in general, preseason, it's rarely wrong to bet the first half to outscore the second half, as long as you can get it at a reasonable vig, not higher than typically minus 150.
Good stuff. If you guys want to ask any questions throughout our show, be sure to contribute in the chat. You can chat with us on YouTube. You could also just reply to one of our tweets. We'll read the threads as we progress throughout the show. We are here each and every Thursday, live streaming from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock Eastern time. That is 11 a.m. Pacific time for you guys here on the West Coast. Duck, week 0 is fast approaching in college football. There's a lot of news this offseason, transfer portal news, rule changes, right? We could talk about the new targeting rule and how that's changing things. But what's your portfolio look like? I know you're someone that plays a lot of win totals in college football. Are you done with that right now, or are you continuing to add as we move through August?
I'm continuing to add, and I've found a couple positions where there are still some meat on the bone, especially at the G6 level with these regular season win totals. Admittedly, I do a lot of my work in April and May, and I'm early to the window. I get a lot of closing line value. I see these win totals move, oftentimes a full win in my favor, which gives us a great position and an equity position on those wagers. But there is still some meat on the bone. And when you deep dive all these conferences and go through, the transfer portal has created a ton of chaos with roster reconstruction, offensive and defensive line continuity. Coaches and coordinators are coming and going. And I think it's harder than ever for us as bettors and also for the Vegas oddsmen to really identify which of these teams is going to be strong and which one isn't going to be strong. It's harder now than ever in the college leagues to maintain program success. And we can see teams with wild swings year to year. Kennesaw State is a great example. They came up from the FCS level in 2024. They were terrible. They were 2-10. Last year, they were 10-2. Are they going to maintain that level of success given the offensive line losses, the quarterback losses, the receiver losses, and what they lose defensively, it's tough to be said. So there is still some value in the college leagues in the regular season win market, I firmly believe. And so I continue to do that. I continue to look for opportunities there to get people to the window with regular season wins, which is my favorite of all sports betting derivative markets to bet anywhere, which is why I start April 1st.
Fez, what about you? Do you do season wins in college football? I know you and I have talked about like totals on teams, like in, for like on a per game basis, especially like in week one. But what about season long win stuff? Is that something that you dive into as well?
Oh, 100%. And frankly, I wish I'd done a whole lot more than it. Duck nails it. Like every year, he's going to have uh, bets like Iowa State under 5.5, and it's going to close 4.5, and he's going to beat the closer by a game. So now think about that. That's not like beating the closer by a point. You beat the closer by a game. How much is a game worth in terms of VIG? Over 100 cents. So you're basically playing minus 110 on something that should be minus 220. It's going to be pretty hard to lose with portfolios like that. I will say this, and I agree completely with Duck. You do all this work early. I didn't do it. You guys have done it. And you have to be willing to change your opinions
Mhm.
rapidly come August and September when they actually start playing, because the roster overhauls are so extreme. Some of these teams, Kennesaw is a good example, second year head coach, not a lot of guys coming back, good year last year. They could be terrible or they could be decent, right? We really can't be sure.
Well, I want to talk about that roster turnover, especially when it comes to the quarterback position, because both in the NFL and college football, I think it's very similar to look at old faces in new places, right? In the NFL, we're used to this, right? Free agency and trades, and we're going to see players that were starting quarterbacks on teams that just become starting quarterbacks on other teams. In college football now, and Duck, you can attest to this, it's become more like NFL free agency because of NIL and the transfer portal, that players, especially quarterbacks, are playing a full season or multiple years at one school and then they're transferring to another school. Most of the time it's either a lateral or a transfer up, but you do get the rare instance, cough cough Nico, where it's a transfer down from a program. So how challenging is that to look at these quarterbacks that are changing schools so frequently?
It's very challenging with every position group. The legacy players that stay for 4 years and really make their mark on a program, that's a thing of the past. People want the money, they want the exposure, they want to be put in whatever sort of situation is going to get them theirs. I don't fault people for doing that, but staying at a program and earning your spot and being in the heat of the competition of position battles, that's a thing of the past. People, when the rubber meets the road, they transfer down, or if they shine in a program, they're moving up. It makes it very difficult, and it really complicates things. I thought college football did a great job this particular offseason in avoiding the second transfer portal window. The last couple of seasons, it's been just absolute chaos after spring practice, where players could come and go. Teams weren't playing their players in a spring game because they didn't want to put anything on film. So I thought they did a great job of just executing the one portal window. It made it easier for me when I was doing my roster continuity exercises and trying to get an idea of what these teams were going to look like. The problem came about 2 weeks ago when the Colorado judges ruled on players from 2022 having a fifth year of eligibility. So those players, their eligibility had been exhausted. And now we're seeing players return to schools for a fifth season after everybody thought they were done with college football. So that's something to watch. But it's chaos, guys. It's the Wild West out here as far as
Yeah.
transferring, people getting paid. It is it is really one thing. And I'm glad that Steve brought up having to have some tolerance. You have to have tolerance in your power ratings to upgrade and downgrade teams, but you do need to have a tolerance. If you take a position on a regular season win, for example, if I were to take a position on a regular season win under on a particular team, that doesn't mean that it's a guarantee that team's going to be garbage, and it also doesn't mean that team is unbettable week to week during the season. You have to have tolerance to be able to recognize a play on spot or a tough travel spot for an opponent. There are situational spots where that can happen, and you can have misreads in regular season wins. Happens to me all the time. So you have to have that tolerance to understand, no, I was wrong there.
Yeah. We will get to some week 0 best bets coming up in a few minutes. We'll also get to some best bets for tonight's NFL preseason games. I have some, Fez, you might disagree with. Duck, I know you have week 0 bets in college football, but I wanted to stick with this roster turnover topic because I think it's fascinating. And I actually did a couple of studies here when it comes to college quarterbacks. But Fez, let's start in the NFL because your power ratings, as Duck said, you have to constantly be changing them, right? And this year we have a bunch of new quarterbacks in new places that affect the power ratings more so than any position player on the team. Malik Willis with the Miami Dolphins, Kyler Murray, now the starting quarterback with the Minnesota Vikings, Kirk Cousins with the Las Vegas Raiders for now, Geno Smith with the Jets, and then possibly Tua will be starting with the Falcons. Deshaun Watson maybe starts with the Browns. I know he's going to get the first start here in preseason. So how do your rankings kind of change with the quarterbacks that are in new places?
I very much rely upon the marketplace for my opening NFL season wins and power ratings. So I essentially, Scott, what I do is I look at a team season win number. I'm going to make it simple. Let's assume they have an average schedule and a team is lined at 9.5 wins. So they're a game above the 8.5 season win number average. And I would make them a +2 in terms of my power rating. And I would assume that the marketplace is correct in terms of how they're pricing a quarterback within that. And then I start tweaking it based upon how hard is the schedule, how good is the line play. That's your trench report. What do others think that I respect? DVOA numbers from Football Outsiders, Cleve TA's numbers. I take a look at certain things. Was the team super healthy? Like last year, Jacksonville was unreasonably healthy. I got to feel they're slightly overvalued. So I'll take SIC's sports injury consultants numbers from last year and assume teams that were very unhealthy are going to be better this year and vice versa. Tweak it all, put it into a number. But in terms of, the roster construction and evaluating free agency, evaluating all the quarterbacks, although I do have a price for the starter versus the backup, I really rely much more on the marketplace to get my starting number, and then I just do some manual tweaks.
Doug, what about you when it comes to the transfer quarterbacks that are going to be now playing for new schools? And we have a whole list here. I mean, I know a lot of people are talking about Darian Mensah at Duke. You got Drew Mestamaker going to Oklahoma State, Sam Levitt at LSU, Josh Hoover at Indiana, Rocco Becht going to Penn State with his former head coach. So, and those are just a handful of them. How do you change your ratings now based on the quarterbacks that are playing for new programs?
I really handle it case by case. Every adjustment up and down could be different given the situation. For example, I think Darian Mensah is a great fit at Miami. I think he adds a huge dynamic here for their offense. The mobility that he possesses will potentially come in handy as the offensive line, which Miami's offensive line was so much better than their opponent's defensive line last year. They were able to reset the line of scrimmage. They were able to impose their will. Third and short, fourth and short, gotta have it. Miami was able to do that because of their excellent offensive line play. But this year it might look a little different. They're retooling the offensive line. They have some young players in there that are unproven and inexperienced. They only gave up 11 sacks during the regular season last year, and I would just anticipate that there's a little bit more pressure. So Mensah having mobility will really help him. I also do think that they're going to be able to afford this offense with Mensah the opportunity to take more vertical deep shots down the field. That was one thing that Miami did struggle with. Most of the drives were matriculated drives, long, methodical drives. I think Miami will have a decent amount of explosivity that they didn't have last season, which will give them some quick strike. Honestly, what it did is it solidified the position that I believed with Miami. I think they're a very dangerous play to win the ACC, despite never having done that before. They're a deserved, overwhelming favorite. I've got them about a touchdown clear of everybody else in my power ratings. The schedule is conducive to racking up the wins. I think Miami is a very strong team and a team that should be back in the playoff this late this fall.
All right, I'm going to run some numbers by you. And Fez, I want your opinion on this because sometimes I give you these stats and these trends, and you tell me that's noise or that's nonsense or I need a larger sample size. So I'm curious your opinion on some of these. But I went back, guys, and I looked at just the last 2 years, okay? And I took 10 quarterbacks that transferred programs. All right. Some of the well-known guys. I know we have like the top list now that I just mentioned, but over the past 2 years, we've had guys that went from starting at one program to now starting at another program. In 2025, let's see, Carson Beck from Georgia to Miami. Nico went from Tennessee to UCLA. Joey Aguilar was kind of the switch of that, the flip of that, right? UCLA to Tennessee. Devin Dampier from New Mexico to Utah. John Mateer from Washington State to Oklahoma. Fernando Mendoza went from Cal to Indiana. And in 2024, Cam Ward from Washington State to Miami, Riley Leonard from Duke to Notre Dame, Will Howard from Kansas State to Ohio State, and Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma to Oregon. Here's the data that I got from those quarterbacks. When they played in week 1 against a Power 5 opponent, okay, they went 5-0 straight up in those games. But when they were huge favorites against an inferior opponent, whether it was, a G5 now, G6 school, they didn't cover the spread. They started out slowly. We look at Mendoza, Indiana, 18 of 31, 193 yards, no passing touchdowns. Indiana started slow. Will Howard at Ohio State, they put up big numbers. They did not cover that first game at Ohio State. So I'm looking at these games in week number 1, and the one that jumps out to me is North Texas plus 40.5 against Indiana. Maybe it's a slow start for Josh Hoover and the Hoosiers with all the turnover that they're dealing with. What do you think about that, Duck?
I don't know if those two situations are correlated or not. I will tell you North Texas is a team that I did fade in the regular season win market. They're coming off their best season in program history. Last season, their regular season win total was 6.5. Now they had just their absolute best season in program history with an electric offense. We all know what they did. But they lose everybody. There's now a complete major roster turnover, and I thought that the win total was misappropriately priced. But when you see the the portal churn and the talent churn that Neil Brown executed at North Texas, this roster is actually shored up pretty decently. You're getting Jaheim White in from West Virginia. Aaron Alexander was a great Sun Belt linebacker from Arkansas State. Caden Jenkins was a good corner from Baylor. I mean, the list goes on and on. Corey Milliner was an explosive receiver from UAB. Zaki Barker from SMU is a decent player in the second level of the defense. So there are pieces for North Texas here. And Indiana, Kurt Cignetti is an excellent coach. He has executed the greatest turnaround in the history of college football, as far as I'm concerned. If you remember what Indiana was doing before he got there, they were losing to Purdue, taking 4 overtimes to beat Akron, struggling with Western Kentucky. It was very, very bad. And now they're the national champions. But I do think there's some element with Indiana where everyone's patting you on the back all offseason, being the champs. I believe Cignetti is hungry, and I don't think he'll allow some of that poison to infiltrate the locker room from his end. But players are all hyped up about being the best all off season. And hey, they started slow the last 2 years. They started slow in Cignetti's opener against Florida International, didn't cover, and then they didn't cover last year against Old Dominion. I kind of think North Texas can cover this number for other reasons. I think Hoover can have a great game, and I think that he can play really good football, and I really think that it's going to be plug and play with him. I would expect Josh Hoover to put up a monster season, and I think Indiana will have an opportunity to make a deep playoff run this season again. They're going to run it back. I'm not going to say they're going to win the whole thing, but everybody, and I'll tell you with this one, 40.5 is just as good as 35.5 when you get to these high spreads in college football. So I would wait. Everyone's going to line up at the pay window and move money across the counter on Indiana. I wouldn't be stunned if this closes 42.5, 43.5. 15 minutes before kickoff. So above that, I would play North Texas. I think this team can go in and do a few things. There is some talent on the offensive line. There's some talent at the running back position. Indiana's going to win the game, and they'll probably end up winning the game by 4 or 5 touchdowns. But I do think North Texas is a viable option here.
Fez, what do you think about that? So the 10 quarterbacks that I referenced, they all went 9-1 in their games, right? The only loss was UCLA, but that was kind of, they played Utah and Devin Dampier. So both of them were transfer quarterbacks, so it kind of cancels each other out in that game. The power versus power opponents, we actually had 2 outright underdog wins of those 5 wins. And as I mentioned, the trap spots, the huge favorites in the tune-up games, that's where the underdogs came through and the unders actually came through. Ohio State over Akron. Oregon only beat Idaho 24-14 in Dylan Gabriel's debut. And Fernando Mendoza struggled in his first game with Indiana. Do you think there's something to that? And what did you think of what Duck said about the number not mattering as much when you get that high of a spread?
So I think if we go to the movie, what is A Perfect Mind with Russell Crowe, where he's looking for Russian code in the newspaper and he finds it because he's looking so hard. There is no Russian code. It's just you look hard enough at data and you'll find patterns. If these transferring quarterbacks are good, they should be good against everyone, not just the cupcakes and versus the good teams. I think a 5-0 sample size is woefully inadequate. Go play blackjack. You'll go 7-1, and then you'll go 2-11, and it's easy to justify what happened. It's just I think it's random noise. Having said all this, I love games that are lined at 41 like this because 42 is actually a really key number. The total is 55-ish. So think about this. I mean, easily North Texas could lose by 42. I would say once it gets to 42.5, 43 is a dead number. So I would lock in the plus 42.5. One thing I like to do with games like this is I'll make a pre-flop bet and I'll save something back because Indiana has murdered bad teams. They did, last year. So be cool, be patient. And if North Texas is terrible, I find it hard to believe with Indiana off their national title that they don't get up 35 in the middle of the third quarter even. And now you're catching North Texas plus a 52.5, and you can fire in some more bullets in the chamber and lose even more. I mean, you can try to win some money, with some live betting. Who's going to bet on North Texas if they get smashed in the first quarter, the second quarter, and the third quarter live? And that's oftentimes the perfect time to go ahead. I mean, Indiana's not going to be motivated to win this game by 60. So that's how I would approach it.
It makes a lot of sense, right? The white flag unders or something once we get late into these blowout games. Duck, when it comes to a quarterback like Rocco Becht, for example, is that situation different for you because he follows his head coach and it's the same system that's kind of transferring over? I mean, we saw that, right, with John Mateer going to Oklahoma, right, goes with his offensive coordinator. When you have a situation where a player follows the coach, does that for you mean a smoother transition and they become play on teams early on as opposed to watching that transition in week number 1?
I think that can certainly help when you have cohesiveness with a quarterback coach, a head coach, an offensive coordinator. And in Rocco Becht's case, they're going to run the same system. Penn State's going to run 12 personnel. They're going to get their tight ends involved in the run blocking. They're going to hand the ball to Carson Hansen, who also played at Iowa State. You're going to have a lot of familiarity with people in the huddle and the people on the headset. And really what's going to have changed is the uniform color. And that's about it. So I do think that there is an element there with Penn State where they shouldn't miss a beat. I don't think Penn State is a team that should be taken seriously as a national contender this season. I don't think they have the personnel and the horses on the outside. I don't know that they're going to be as tough in the trenches when they would have to line up against elite competition. But the thing that Penn State has going for them this year is they don't play elite competition. They have a very Charmin soft schedule. The non-conference opens up with Marshall, Temple, and Buffalo before you get into Big Ten league play. There's no Indiana. There's no Ohio State. There's no Oregon on the schedule. Every game on this slate is winnable. Even a trip to Michigan you have to believe that team is going to go in there and compete. So I do think that the Penn State hype is warranted given the personnel and the schedule. I also think that there's going to be a point in time this season where Penn State becomes overvalued and we'll have a little bit of ATS value going the other way. And honestly, I wouldn't be stunned given Matt Campbell's propensity in the non-conference to play lower scoring, slower paced, tighter games. Marshall's getting 25.5 with the way that Tony Gibson managed that roster last year after a clean sweep. They've got their quarterback. They've got some dudes on the defensive line. You're getting Boogie Flan back at corner. I think that Marshall is a team that can play some decent football out there. And I just wonder if the style of coaching, right? Penn State was such a great non-conference bully because big game James Franklin knew the number and he wanted to exceed and get his team outside the number, actively calling timeouts late in order to do so several times. Last year against Villanova, we all remember the WVU game where they were trying to get the front door cover late with really no reason to do so other than he wanted to. Well, Matt Campbell doesn't really operate that way. So I wouldn't be stunned to see Penn State. There's so much hype. There's so much excitement about the Iowa State flavor after last year's horrendous season that really could not have gone any worse. They're beating Marshall by 4 touchdowns. Matt Campbell doesn't do that. So I could see it going that way. One that I do want to bring up real quick, though, I apologize for the monologue. Drew Mestemaker. Again, North Texas. He's got his receivers with him. He's got the running back with him. North Texas has brought the whole platoon over to Oklahoma State. By the way that the media is talking about Oklahoma State, and when you look at some of the prediction markets and how people are betting Oklahoma State, they're a shoo-in to win the Big 12, according to all those pundits. I don't necessarily think so. Drew Mestemaker was a great story, but he feasted against UAB, Rice, Charlotte, Lamar, Washington State. Some of those defenses were horrific last year, and now you're lining up against a full slate of Power 4 athletes. Drew Mestemaker has never played a Power 4 opponent, and everyone who thinks that Oklahoma State is just going to roll out the North Texas platoon and completely disregard the defense that really struggled and was really way behind, and even North Texas's defense was underwhelming at times last season. I thought the win total at 5.5 was inappropriately priced. I thought it should have been 6.5. Now we're seeing 6.5. And I just think we are going to see a situation where Oklahoma State and this whole great North Texas platoon is going to take their lumps. I think it starts in the opener against Tulsa. I think this is a spot where Tulsa is live. Tulsa's going to have a nasty AAC defensive line. They're building their offense around Baylor Hayes, who did so well as a freshman, 2,158 yards passing as a freshman. Now you get the offseason for him to kind of procure what they want to do offensively. Tulsa is a dangerous live week 1 play, and you're getting 2 touchdowns at home. I just think the Oklahoma State hyperbole has gotten out of control.
Well, I can't wait. We are fast approaching and lock in these bets because you're going to get some CLV most likely before we get to week 0 and week 1. We'll get to some more best bets coming up a little later on here in the program. I want to remind you guys you can participate in the chat on YouTube. Just ask your question in the YouTube chat or reply to one of our Twitter threads, and we will read your question on the air. If you have anything, a question about a specific game, a specific betting trend, style, any advice, we are here to answer your questions. We are live each and every Thursday right here on the Bettor Day Football Show with myself, Scott Seidenberg, Steve Fezzik, and Joshua Nunn, streaming on the Bettor Day YouTube page and the Bettor Day Twitter page. If you missed this episode, we will podcast it. Just search for Bettor Day on your favorite podcast app. All right, Fez, let's talk power ratings because you mentioned that the trench report that we put out up on bettorday.com is a piece of your power ratings. Now, the trench report's going to change with every single week, right? As we get more data, especially here into the 2026 season. This year, we are doing a college football trench report as well, and that is exclusively for Bettor Day Insider and Premium members. Go to bettorday.com or check out the Bettor Day mobile app to find out more information there. Last year, Fez, now this is great. One of our listeners, or one of our members, I should say, did a research project for me looking up the trench report results. And I've told you about how great, I've told everybody about how great the trench report went with the top 5 mismatches of the week and even playing underdogs in the games that were closely lined. But how about this? I want to take it one step further. And my shout out to Matt, who helped me out with this and sent this to me. In games where there was a 3-point dog or higher that had a 10-point or better discrepancy in the trench report, meaning they were actually the favored team in the trench report. Fez, those teams last year went 14-5 against the spread.
So now I'm going to have to be betting on the Cleveland Browns, is what you're telling me.
Well, no, not necessarily, because the Browns losing Myles Garrett changes their trench ratings, and obviously they're not going to be the same trench team that they were last year. But yes, if you took a lot of these ugly dogs, for lack of a better term, that actually had the better offensive and defensive grades compared to their opponent, they wound up covering. And as we saw with the underdog report that I tweeted out and sent out and published on bettorday.com last year, what was it, 21-12? with 13 outright underdog wins just in the games that were closely matched. We're not talking about a discrepancy. We're talking about games that were too close to call.
And think about everyone who has been booted from Survivor with the god dang Cincinnati Bengals and their horrific trench report coming into this year. And already they're the hot team again. And when does Cincinnati lose to Cleveland again? It really seems like they're the Bengals are the classic example of everyone loves their skill position players and their quarterback, and they're just they're unreliable. So buyer beware.
Yeah, and in the trench report that I did, a preseason ranking, which has to be changed once, and I know it has to be changed with injuries because Larry Tunsil's out for Washington. That changes their grade significantly. We have a couple other injuries across the league that will change some of the metrics. I'm going to wait till after preseason week 1 to get some preseason week 1 data to put into the NFL trench report. But right now, up on BettorDay.com, we do have the preseason metrics where the Los Angeles Rams are your number 1 overall trench team, followed by the Philadelphia Eagles, Denver Broncos, Kansas City Chiefs, and Houston Texans. And then at the bottom, the Cincinnati Bengals, Las Vegas Raiders, Green Bay Packers, Miami Dolphins, and believe it or not, the Buffalo Bills. So caution for the Bills. Again, these grades will change. These are only preseason numbers. And what goes into my preseason numbers, Fez? It's the stats from last year with roster turnover accounted in. So I planned for, Myles Garrett going to the Rams, right? I planned for, Dexter Lawrence goes to the Bengals, things like that. But now I have to counter in injuries and other things. So the preseason numbers will change going into the start of the regular season. Now, Duck, this year I'm doing a college football trench report. Again, for Better Day Insider and Premium members. The trench report that I have up right now for college football is just last year's numbers. So last year, Indiana graded out at the end of the season the number 1 trench team. They won the national championship. Ohio State was number 2. Missouri was number 3. Miami number 4. And Texas Tech number 5. Of those top 5 teams from last year, what do you think about the turnover in this year in the trenches? And how do you think overall the trench report in college football is going to provide some betting angles?
That's a dynamic question. I've got a long answer. I think Texas Tech is going to be a notch down in the defensive trench. That doesn't mean they're going to be bad. I have Texas Tech as 8.5 points clear of anybody else in my power ratings in the Big 12. I believe they will win the league. They had an elite national championship caliber defensive front last year. The sack and havoc numbers were outrageous, forcing opposing quarterbacks to have to make such quicker decisions than they were accustomed to. Really aided Texas Tech. They're going to be very strong, but they're not going to be an elite level. I think Indiana and Ohio State have an opportunity to be an elite level. Miami will not be because they're retooling the offensive line. But figuring and factoring these out and being ahead of that is so important. A point I want to make, Fez, if you have your NFL power ratings, top team, bottom team, what's the difference in dichotomy there? Is about 12.5 points?
It is 15. I got the Rams plus 7.4, Miami minus 7.7. But you're correct, Duck. This is an aberration because I got Miami so low. They're one of the worst preseason power rated teams I've had in recent history.
My point being, with the NFL, you get this compression in the power ratings when compared to the college leagues, where you can have a 58-point disparity between Georgia and UMass very commonly. In the NFL, truly, the beauty of that league is that every team is good and every team can beat any other team on any given Sunday. So you've got this compression. It narrows the margin for error. You've identified a trend in the trench report that is providing actual cash value against the number, something to lean in on. In the college leagues, my point with this would be, I have done legitimate deep dives, hour upon hour of research on every FBS team. Every G6 roster was decimated. Cohesiveness, continuity along the offensive and defensive lines is almost non-existent in the college leagues. I think it was 8 teams out of 138 FBS programs that return 4 or more starters along the offensive line. So the cohesiveness is just not there. This trench report is going to help people win bets. There's no other way around it. Knowing who the wide receivers and the quarterbacks are, that's great, and it does matter. But football games at the college and professional level, they are won and lost in the trenches. This is a report that people need to have their eyes on.
I love
Duck,
it.
I need you to give me a report on the brand new coaches and which ones are going to have a drastic pace of play change in terms of more hurry up, or maybe they're going to go slower than their predecessor, because oftentimes, even if the offensive efficiency is the same, if the pace of play changes significantly, huge impact on the total. Do you do that? And do you have any data on the teams when you price totals?
Absolutely, I do. And I think that there is a significant amount of value that can be extracted from that. Even coordinator change can have an impact. And I'll give you a real life example for everybody listening in that you can put in your notebook and follow up on it later. Arkansas State has been routinely a fast paced, hurry up tempo, high octane offense, take deep shots, score a lot of points, and give a lot up on the back end on defense. Their new offensive coordinator is the former quarterbacks coach at Vanderbilt, and he worked with Diego Pavia. Vandy operated regularly at a bottom 5 level of tempo in the entire country. Arkansas State's defense overperformed last year. When you look at the havoc numbers and the sack numbers, it was stunning how a team with the talent composite makeup in the front seven was able to secure so much pressure. Now, Arkansas State is losing a little bit of that talent, and their defense could pay the price, but they are going to run such a slow operating tempo. They're going to be much more methodical. They're going to be a ball control offense. They're going to run the football a lot more. Arkansas State, with that change of pace, is something that perhaps the books haven't caught up to quite yet, knowing that this team in priors has been a high-flying organization. I think Arkansas State is a sneaky under team. But Fez, there is absolutely data out there that would point to pace changes and teams adopting different styles of ideology. You see it at the FBS level, you see it at the FCS level, and people don't recognize it until 2 or 3 games have passed, and by then the value is dried up. So we'll talk off air on that, and we'll talk on air on that as well. That'll be a topic for another day.
You know, one housekeeping item that I wanted to mention, it's a great time to be betting on college football because the markets are so divergent. This is why you have to have your Bettor Day odds screen up at all times, because previously we'd spoke about the Tulsa Oklahoma State game. You can lay 13.5 minus 14 on that game on Oklahoma State. Or if you've been listening, you'll take the plus 15.5 on Tulsa over at Circa. That's a profitable middle. That is a good middle bet to make. And you've got a 2-point differential just on one game we're talking about. Crazy.
And surrounding a key number, a very key number.
Yeah, I love that. And what we are adding up on betterday.com, in addition to the odds, Fez, under our NFL, we have the NFL headquarters, we have the college football HQ, but under every game. So if you click on the NFL, the NCAA F tab, the college football tab, you can click on any game and it'll pull up the player props and derivative markets. So we're going to be doing a lot of college football player props this year, especially running back props, and something that I'm going to be doing with the Trench Sport this year, team rushing numbers. And there are certain books like FanDuel that do allow you to do that. They have the bets, like, so you can say, hey, Memphis over 245.5 rushing yards in this game versus, UNLV or versus Arkansas State in that paint bucket game. That's I see a total of 55.5 in that game already, Duck, for September 5th. So I'm going to be playing a lot of college football player props this year. Fez, what do you think about that market?
Love it. And I'd be remiss not to mention the importance of looking to play in the NFL now, skill position players under. Now, it used to be better. It's still great, in my opinion. So if you played every wide receiver and running back under the past 5 years, you've cashed over 60% of your bets. Do I expect that will continue? No. Do I expect it will hit more like 55, 56%? Yes. And a key reason is, think about it. You got 2 paths to victory. If your guy gets hurt, you win. If your guy gets his job either shared or just his touches reduced, you win probably. And if he plays every game and he continues to be the man, being the wide receiver 1, you're probably at an underdog to win, but you could still steal it if some things happen. So there's so many paths to victory there. And in the past, they would price all these players as if they were going to play 16 or 17 games in their primary role. They've scaled it back a bit, but this is the one thing the mainstream media just gets completely wrong. I would say 80% of the recommended bets I've heard from the national media is that, oh, you have to go, you have to play Gibbs over, and you have to play various, number one wide receivers over. Justin Jefferson's going to be so much better now that he is a quarterback. Well, he may well be. He's still got to get 1,200 yards. It's under or nothing on all those type of bets for me.
I love it. We have some comments coming in on Twitter and on YouTube. We will get to the chat coming up in a few minutes, but just some comments I want to say. Michael Martinez says, great to have you guys back. So thanks. Welcome, Michael. Great to have you. I'm pretty sure you were a viewer of the BetUS stuff. So thanks for being with us here on the Bettor Day Football Show. Todd says, this is awesome. I feel like a 12-year-old in a strip club. Feel like they don't allow 12-year-olds in strip clubs.
They do if you're Will Hill's kids, because he can apparently get away with anything in Vegas. His kids have been tossed out of
every casino.
3 bars and casinos over the past 3 years. I have witnessed the Hill family being kicked out of a VIP lounge personally after they cleaned out a third of the food that was stocked.
That's amazing. Brian asks something about how do we handle live betting preseason games. We're going to get into that here, Brian, and also continue your questions coming in, whether you're watching on YouTube or you're watching on Twitter/X. Send your questions and your comments in. I want to get to some NFL preseason because tonight, Fez, it is week 1 of the NFL preseason. We had the Hall of Fame game last week, which was very fun, of course, in the highest scoring Hall of Fame game we've ever seen. And there is a trend that has me on a team tonight as it pertains to last week's Hall of Fame game. So let me quickly run through the schedule with some odds, current odds, and some maybe market movement on the games that we have tonight. We have the Packers at Pittsburgh, Detroit at Cincinnati, Indy at New England, the Chargers at Houston, Arizona at Vegas, and Tennessee at San Francisco. Those are your NFL preseason games for tonight. Fez, you said you already had something on Cincinnati, Detroit. I actually saw a couple of things flash up on my screen here, but the game that I want to talk about real quick, Arizona at Las Vegas, for a couple of reasons. Now, I played Arizona plus 2.5. As I'm looking at the market right now, I'm seeing 3s on the board. So there is steam coming in on Las Vegas. I'm seeing FanDuel still at 2.5. So if you like Vegas, you can get minus 2.5. If you like Arizona like I do, Circa's got +3, DraftKings has +3, Caesars has +3. Pretty much looks like it's going 3 across the board here, Fez. What do you think about, first off, before getting to my trends and why I like Arizona, what do you think about the steam here in the NFL preseason? Do you normally steam chase in NFL preseason? Is the move always the right move in the preseason?
It typically is. It's the one steam-orama situation where any other sport, let's say a baseball game, and the Blue Jays are minus 120 and they're closing minus 150 because of lineup changes or the vagaries of the marketplace. And you asked me, gun to my head, I need to make a bet on that game. On the prediction markets, it's Toronto minus 146. The other guy's plus 146. Who do I like? I'm always going to say play the dog, of course. No brainer. I don't know what the right answer is in preseason, but I will say, Scott, and we talked about this pre-production, it is rarely correct to fade a line move before 3 minutes before kickoff because we are a copycat society. Everybody comes in and they explain all the reasons why the Raiders are the right side, and they were the right side. Not at 3, they're not the right side. At pick them, they're the right side. So let the market run, be cool, and bet Arizona right before the game kicks off. And it's funny because a half hour ago, I told Scott, I said, Scott, I think we're going to get +3. And now the greedy person I am, I'm like, Scott, we might get +3.5 or more likely, right, +3, +100, right? I'd also be remiss not to mention with these prediction markets, it's so important. Don't be a square ball and lay minus 110. These prediction markets, and it's not as strong because of the lack of liquidity on preseason games versus regular season games. But still, you're going to see, and I'm just pulling up one of my exchanges. What's this? Lost, and this is just one book I'm checking. Raiders -3, -104. Arizona +3, -101.5. Is there any liquidity here? $238. I'll take it. But my point is that if you think you're going to win playing +2.5 and laying -110 when you can bet +3, -102, you are delusional. You got to get the best number. And a big part of that, I'm kind of a dummy when it comes to this as well, but novig.com is in like 30 states right now, and they have no extra fees to the market maker or the market taker. It's ultra simple. It looks like a sports book. Get a novig.com account as your very first step, and you won't even have to shop every baseball game, day of the game, every NFL game. You just go there. It'll be the best number 8 out of 10 times.
And for those that are interested in prediction markets, we do have up on betterday.com for free. This is a free tool. You don't even have to be a member. We have on our calculators tab a prediction market converter. And what I did was I put in the popular prediction markets like Kalshi, Polymarket, Robinhood, and there's also an option for you to just say other exchanges with no fees. But this calculator builds in the fees for you and lets you know what the actual price is on the sports book. So here's the example. I'm plugging it into the calculator. You ready for this, Fez?
I'm ready.
On Polymarket right now, it says Raiders 60 cents. Okay? 60 cents on the Raiders. I plug it into the betterday.com prediction market converter. 60 cents on a Polymarket market order with their fees equates to -158 in American odds. Now I go to my sportsbook tab and I shop around and I see Vegas at Circa is -155. So, and I see other books like FanDuel -162. So Polymarket would be better than FanDuel. Circa would be better than Polymarket. This is an incredible tool that I think anybody that's betting on prediction markets should get their hands on. A converter which calculates the fees. Again, it is free for everyone at betterday.com.
Outstanding. But 95% of the time, standalone game, 5 p.m. All right, it's not standalone. There's one other game that's starting at the same time, but the Raiders game is going to be on TV. That if the market stays where it's at, that thing's going to close Raiders -149, Arizona +148. There's no reason to go to a Kalshi or some of these other places that have added fees you have to add in when you can go to a place that doesn't have the fees right now. Now, will they have it going forward? No, but and this will be controversial. No one's going to win in baseball playing into a 15-cent line. Like a -130 +115 the day of the game. Nobody. It's too hard. And this doesn't prove you're not going to win. But the fact that the betting exchanges have these games -123 +122, a 1-cent straddle versus a 15-cent straddle. If you were able to win playing into the -130 +115, the good news is if you can hit 52%, you're going to become a millionaire pretty quickly. Betting the day of the game into major market sports. And so the hurdle used to be 52.4%. Now, if you can hit 51.8%, you're gonna be printing money. This is the day of the game. It's not going to do you any good betting Tulsa, Oklahoma State on the prediction market because there's no liquidity in games like that yet.
By the way, and don't want to make this all a giant promo here, but I do have. If you go to betterday.com and click on the sportsbook promo tab, we do have stuff for some of the markets like Novig, ProfitX, and others. So take advantage of that. Get some free dollars here. Josh, when it comes to market movement, we talked with Fez about the steam here in the preseason before I get to why I like Arizona fading the steam here. What's your take on market movement like this, public money, sharp money, things like that?
In the college leagues, I think it's really important to identify why that movement is happening. You look at the odds that have been out for 60 days, and some people take out these positions and they're starting to enter into a position and maybe pop a game for a limit at one of the recreational books. But that's not going to move the line significantly enough. You can get a service release that might take out a position on something and then give it to their clients, and then the market can move a little bit. Sometimes that's right, and sometimes those moves of 3, 4, 5 points can give you opportunities to come back the other way. Fall camp injuries are a very real thing. We just saw that with Tulane and their stud running back, Jamari McClure, who's out for some time. We saw it with Maryland's star defensive end yesterday went down. So there are some injuries that can provoke market moves. I will tell you, in the FCS markets, those moves are usually very real, and I know a couple of reasons why those FCS markets move very quickly. I may be a part of some of that, and those moves are very real. And so, in the FCS markets where there's less liquidity and there's just less public knowledge about the teams that are playing, you can trust a decent amount of 3 to 7 point FCS moves as a line that was inappropriately priced. But I mean, week 0, week 1, you're always going to have that in the college leagues because the lines have been out forever. People are itching to get some action down and watch a little football, and so it's hit or miss. I would like to know the spirit behind why these lines are moving, as opposed to just seeing a line move and trying to chase it, because sometimes those can be kind of faux indicators, and it gives you value the other way.
Yeah,
Well,
and
let me
Fez, we
address
see it
this.
all.
I think this is really important. When you
Yeah,
get
Fez,
a line move of 5 points,
Mhm.
I would say it's almost never a faux thing. All right. When Brad Powers laid 2 on the game and it closes -7, he's got a good bet. Now, the question is -6 a good bet as far as steam chasing when you see it going up to 7? And this is interesting because I came out and I said one of my favorite strategies, it's called the 8 of clubs method, where you take the biggest line moves. And as Josh mentioned, some of them are absolutely justified. And maybe they didn't even quite move enough. And there are others that were correct to move in the most of the time, but they moved too much. And so every situation is different. However, at Brad Power 7, Brad has analyzed these line moves, and his conclusion is always is the people who bet the pre-steam line move win, and they hit upward high 50s%. But if you'd played it at post and against a market number, you would win less than 50%. It's like 48.5% to 49%. But where that analysis is faulty is, in my opinion, is that these are the games you get bargains on. When you see a team steam from like -20 to -24, there's always a +25. A sportsbook director says, the hell with this game. I don't want to see one more bet on the Irish. And they're going to put the number above market, even at post, because they're so overloaded. And that's where the real opportunity is to be the contrarian and to play against the line move. Very rarely in a situation like that, would I be like trying to make money laying 24 -102 and play the steam after the steam.
No, that's a great point. And as you always talk about, Fez, it is okay to play back off a position at all times. I want to get to the play why I like Arizona here tonight before we get to our Q&A here to wrap up the show and some other best bets that anybody wants to give out. I am on Arizona tonight, Fez, because it is their second preseason game. They played the Hall of Fame game last week. We saw what Carson Beck looked like in that Hall of Fame game last week, and he acquitted himself very well. Plus, behind Jacoby Brissett is Gardner Minshew as well. So we do like the quarterback room there in Arizona. And also, playing the first preseason game gives you valuable experience that you don't have when you're playing your first preseason game. And what we've seen, and I saw this on VSiN, courtesy of Steve Mackinnon, who does great analytics work. If you look at the last, a couple of years, last 3 years or so, right? And this is obviously the new era of the preseason because we've gone to 3 preseason games. But it is 5 straight wins, straight up in ATS, for teams that played in the Hall of Fame game. Now, a couple of years ago, the 2 teams split. 1 team lost and 1 team won. But as Mackinnon pointed out on VSiN, the team that played later in the week actually won. So the team played on Thursday, they lost. The team that played later in the week won. So it's 5 straight wins, straight up in ATS for the teams that played in the Hall of Fame game. And now another reason why I like fading Vegas here is because Clint Kubiak told us, and this is the thing, information is king when it comes to betting the NFL preseason. Clint Kubiak, the head coach of the Raiders, said Fernando Mendoza is going to get plenty of reps. He's going to see a lot of time here, right? Well, I looked back at the last 4 number 1 overall pick quarterbacks going back to Trevor Lawrence in 2021, Bryce Young in 23, Caleb Williams in 24, and Cam Ward last season. All 4 of those quarterbacks combined in their preseason debuts, 19 of 30 passing, 254 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Only Caleb Williams and the Bears won their game, by the way, but no touchdown passes from the number 1 overall pick quarterback in their preseason debut. Mendoza could wind up being great. I want to fade him in his first action against a team that has something to prove after losing the Hall of Fame game last week.
Scott, we're in Las Vegas. This game is in Las Vegas. Who are the square ball Vegas fans going to bet on in this game?
Las Vegas.
There you go. So I needed to be at the closest casino to the arena. That would be the MGM because it's right next to Mandalay Bay.
Or the Orleans, I guess. I guess it depends. Yeah, you're right.
You know, it's funny. It's like the MGM just they had this line at 2.9. What the heck does Fez mean by 2.9? They had the Arizona +3 -120. They just moved to +3 -110. I would imagine
FanDuel just popped to 3.5.
Well, there you go. So at 3.5, what are you waiting for? You're waiting for a 4? Take the +3.5. There you go. Now, this is an example. This is the difference between winning at betting versus winning giving out selections. Obviously, +3.5 is not widely available. Can't give that out to my clients. But for my own betting purposes, to use Right Angle Sports, they say set up Arizona +3.5 at FanDuel. Go. We are betting Arizona because who cares if it closes 4? I'm still getting 3.5. I'm basically getting the same value.
Yeah.
Almost. But if it closes like 2.8 and I'm getting 3.5, think about the value I'm getting, because who knows if there's not going to be a major move back on Arizona right at post. So you would definitely lock in the 3.5. You would definitely wait right now on +3.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And it is a challenge giving out plays versus playing it yourself. You know, when I gave this out up on betterday.com, it was 2.5. Obviously, the market has moved against me. Now, I'm grabbing some of this 3.5, you know, in addition to the 2.5. Although, you know, listen, limits are low in the preseason. We're not betting as much in the preseason as we are in the regular season. Although if we feel like we have an edge, and I feel like I have an edge in another game here coming up tonight, I do like those positions. Speaking of plays, Fezzik and Duck are a part of betterday.com, where for Bettor Day premium members, they will be contributing select plays. Of course, you can see all of Josh's work on the Action Network, all the podcasts that he does, all the videos, the articles, and he will be contributing to betterday.com. Steve Fezzik does not sell picks anywhere except SICpicks.com. He is a part of Dr. David Chow's group over at SIC Score. You can get Fezzik's full betting packages up on SICpicks.com. And yes, Fez will provide Bettor Day premium members with select picks as well throughout the season. But his primary betting cards, all of his plays can be found at SICpicks.com. And if you email us or just follow the Bettor Day newsletter, we have a promo code for you for Fez's SIC stuff. So we'll be able to get that to you guys as well. Want to get to some questions in the chat here before we wrap up. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in here to this first episode of the Bettor Day Football Show. We are streaming live every Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern time, 11 a.m. Pacific time on these channels: YouTube, Bettor Day at Bettor Day, and then Bettor_Day on Twitter. You guys can follow us all on Twitter at Fezzik Sports, at Step on a Duck, at Scott's on Air. We'll retweet the links, and also we will podcast this. So search Bettor Day wherever you get your podcasts from, so you can listen to this at your leisure. Let's get some questions here from the listeners that are watching. Let's see. Rise and Road Trip wants to know thoughts on UNLV to make the playoffs. Someone has to make it from the G6. I feel like they have an easier road as opposed to, let's say, Boise State in the Pac-12. Is there an alternative way to attack that? So, Duck, we'll go to you on that. Your thoughts on UNLV to make the playoff?
I certainly think they'll have an opportunity if they can run the table, and I have UNLV slated to be favored in 10 or 11 games. They have a major P4 opportunity hosting California, who's a team that's been getting some hype out of the ACC. You get a de facto G6 elimination game right away, hosting Memphis. They'll have another one going to New Mexico. If they run the table at 12-0 and win the conference, which I don't think you have to squint too terribly hard to see that, as long as we get the quarterback play and a little bit tougher defensive play, because UNLV was shredded defensively last season. And you might see a little bit tougher defense with second year in the system with Paul Gunther and that defensive staff. I think Jackson Arnold's skill set is not exceptional, but I do think it translates well to what UNLV wants to do offensively. Just hand the ball to Jet Thomas and get out of the way and run some play action pass off of it. But the schedule is one where I could see UNLV getting on a roll. It's going to require better than 10-2. 11-1 is what they're going to have to do in order to give themselves an opportunity. I don't know that we're going to see representation out of the Sun Belt, as I do think James Madison and Old Dominion are a notch below, and there's going to be a lot of carnage between the successful teams in the Sun Belt because they still adhere to the division model. So all of the good teams in the Sun Belt East will play each other and beat each other up. The American is down. 9 teams could win the American this season. You've got the usual suspects: Memphis, Tulane, Navy is down. Army has questions. South Florida is down. East Carolina has offensive line issues. 9 teams could win that league, and I think they're going to beat each other up. So I don't see representation coming out of that league this year because, frankly, I don't think anyone's going to go better than 9-3. So I think it's the Mountain West. I think the Pac-12 could be involved. Boise State's the most logical option. They're the most talented team in the G6. They're about 5.5 points better than anybody else they'll play in their conference. If they run the table, and Boise State has a great schedule to be able to do so, they would need a close, decent showing against Oregon in the opener in Eugene. I don't think we're going to get it. I don't think they're going to compete in the trenches with that elite defensive line of Oregon. But I mean, I don't hate the look for UNLV. I could conceivably see an opportunity for this team to really get on a roll, have a great season, and potentially be that representation. It's not a terrible play at all.
I'm going to come out and say I think it's terrible. Let me give my reasons why. UNLV doesn't have a lot of production coming back under Mullen here, at least in terms of the numbers that I'm looking at. And this is Allen Boston 101. Allen Boston, college basketball expert for years. And he always says, the teams play to their level. Now, I know Indiana won the national championship, so that's the exception to the rule. UNLV is not a football school. I know they had a really good last 2 years. I refuse to believe UNLV is ever going to be good enough to be at that level. And further, when I just look at their schedule, they could lose to Memphis. I know they're favored. And then they're at Hawaii. They're at North Texas. They're at Akron. They're going to get their ass kicked by California because of the Well, they have they could lose to California easily because it's a terrible spot. So right off the bat, then they're at Air Force. They're going to lose that game. Bold prediction: UNLV could finish their floor. The wheels could come off this team. Instead of winning 10 games, they could win 6. There's no way they're winning 12 games. So I absolutely hate the play. Contact me. I'll give you the best number in the market and some.
We got breaking news, Fez, and this is why we have seen the market move on the Raiders. Now 3.5-point favorites at FanDuel, 3-point favorites at Circa, 3-point favorites at Caesars, still 2.5 at a couple other books, but primarily -3 in the market. And as I mentioned, -3.5 at FanDuel. Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network reporting Carson Beck will not play tonight for the Arizona Cardinals. So Carson Beck, who looked good in the Hall of Fame game last Thursday, is dealing with a little bit of a rib injury that is not considered serious. He's been practicing all week, but the team has decided to keep him out tonight as a precaution to allow more time to heal. So that means that we will not see Carson Beck for the Cardinals here tonight, which does hurt some of my position here on the Cardinals. What do you think about that, Fez?
The lesson here is that when I talk about prediction markets, be really careful about putting up orders on teams, because whenever you put up an order on a team and then you get hit with bad news, it always gets filled, and you're going to get your teeth kicked in with open orders on with especially preseason, where there's so much uncertainty regarding the overall line. So this is an example where I would only take bets. I would never try to be a market maker. It's so hard in preseason. But Scott, I just think we bet Arizona 5 minutes before the game starts, and then we bet the second half 2 minutes before the second half starts. You should be fine.
Well, I was going to say this. Why not just take the Cardinals in the first half here? Because at least I know, yeah, you might get a series of Kirk Cousins, but then Fernando Mendoza will come in. Meanwhile, I know I'm going to get Jacoby Brissett and Gardner Minshew in the first half. And guess what? I can get Cardinals plus 2.5 right now in the first half. And knowing,
I'd fire you. It's like you show me a slip with Arizona plus 2.5. Who do you think they're going to bet? And then the steam's like crazy on the Raiders. Here's the bad news on Beck. Wait for +3. Be cool.
Yeah.
Be cool, guys. There's like,
but do
that
you
game
like,
starts at 5 p.m. Scott, I will bet you dinner I get +3 first half. You want to take that?
That's
bet?
what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying. Would you like the first half angle better than the full game? Because now we're taking that whole Carson Beck thing completely out of the equation.
Depends what number I get 3 minutes before the game starts. Probably I like the first half better because it's more likely just a little bit of money on the first half. The limits are so low, we'll move it up to +3, right?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, I'm going to be monitoring this throughout the day, but yeah, it definitely hurts my position because part of the handicap was how good Carson Beck looked. But let's see if it still plays out here. That game coming up 8:00 Eastern time tonight here in Vegas, where I might be in the building, Fez, so I might be calling you for some live plays. So,
I agree totally directionally with your entire handicap. It's just the execution of when to bet it is where I'm really tweaking your approach. Yes.
Well, that's why we have the odds board up while we're doing the live stream. We interact with you guys in the chat. Some of the good questions, we will hold over some of your questions to next week. Jake, I know you wanted to participate in the chat. We got some other questions, Dominic as well. We want to thank you guys for tuning in for the first edition of the Bettor Day Football Show here on the Bettor Day YouTube page and on the Bettor Day Twitter page. We will podcast this episode as well next week as we get closer to the start of college football week 0. We'll start to get into some week 0 official best bets from Duck, anything that Fez has played in week 1 or week 0 of the college football season. And yes, it'll be week 2 of the preseason, the trench report, the power ratings, all those numbers will change once we have some data here after week 1 of the NFL preseason. We are going to be here each and every Thursday, guys. So join us, subscribe to the pod so you can listen to it whenever, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can watch the video whenever. And we appreciate you interacting with us throughout the entirety of the program. I want to thank Johnny for handling things backstage. Again, you can follow Josh on Twitter at StepOnADuck. You follow Fez on Twitter at Fezzik Sports. You follow me, Scott Seidenberg, at Scott's On Air. And here's hoping you make today and every day